What's the purpose of a conclusion in a brief?
I think that ultimately asks you, you want to tell the court what you want it to do.
I've interviewed a couple of former Solicitors General, Ted Olson and Charles Freed.
Mm-hmm.
Freed strongly believes that you should say nothing more than for the foregoing reasons. Olson believes that that's an opportunity for you to hammer home briefly some of the public policy reasons and to make your pitch one last time.
I would probably be more in favor of Charles Freed. I've already read your arguments. And again, I'm not big on the Brandeis brief type things where you're arguing public policy. I just, if you put the argument section and the summary section, if you want to do a little something, fine. If you want to sprinkle a little something in the body of the brief, fine. But I look at the conclusions by the time I get there. If you need to do that, to add a little sprinkling at the conclusion, then you have not done a good job in the body of the brief.
Should briefs be shorter?
I think they should be as short as necessary. I think you should pare them down to what you need, not expand them to the page limit.
But most people are approaching the page limits, aren't they?
I would pare them down. Bob Bork brief, look at some of his. Remember, he came up here once in a case, and I think he had 20 pages. Beautifully written pages. Said what he had to say, and he sat down. Or he stopped writing. Or he may have had more and edited it down to what was necessary. And those tend to be beautifully written briefs.
Do you have a preference for printed single-space briefs over the double-space type that look like they came off typewriters?
I don't care.
Doesn't matter.
Not everybody is in a position to afford the finest type. With computers, you can do almost anything now, though.
Do you often see what you consider to be an excessive citation of authorities?
Well, I think you don't have to. Some people can beat a dead horse until it turns to glue. And I just think that at some point, you just, come on. You don't have to give me 20 authorities for an obvious point. You can cite one case to say that statutory construction begins with the words of the statute. One case. Move on.
Don't you think judges themselves, and I'm not necessarily talking about your colleagues, but judges generally tend to oversight in their opinions?
Oh, I don't know. Really, how many times have you read an opinion and gotten beyond the first cite? The main cites. You just don't get into the body of it. And sometimes they cite a lot because a lot of the cases aren't right on point. And you're just riveting it down with all these cites, But, I understand that. But, I'm not going to criticize the judges. But I think that I don't read all the cites, so it doesn't really matter. It seems like it's unnecessary. And it seems to clutter up the text of the of your brief.
What do you think of parentheticals with citations?
That's an interesting one. I'm not real fond of parentheticals. So, I find them distracting, but, some people like them. But with citation, that would be interesting.
What is your view of footnotes?
I don't care. I don't read them that closely. I think that if it was important, you put it in the text.
What would you think, Justice Thomas, of a style of subordinating citations, putting citations in footnotes, but never talking in footnotes at all, and saying in the text what the authority is, but making it a more narrative style, but none of the numbers, volume numbers and page numbers and all that gunk out?
Oh, I'm not bothered by the cites of the text.
You're not?
No, I'm not bothered by that. That doesn't really... it's really interesting. Every change up here, you develop a rhythm and a way to read something that's already there, and it doesn't bother you. You become accustomed to it. I'm sure there's nothing wrong with driving on the other side, on the right side of the car, if you get used to it. And you say, well, it might be safer to be on the right-hand side, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But to change that, it sort of disrupt patterns. But the briefs are fine the way they are. I think there are ways to take the very same format and just sort of clean it up. I mean, you can clean up the prose, you can make it a little shorter, you can make it a little tighter, but the format itself really doesn't bother me.
You have tremendously intelligent law clerks who have already had some clerking experience. In general, what do they most need to learn when they arrive at the Supreme Court?
You know, my clerks, it's just, I think they just need to go through the repetition of doing the job. They're wonderful. But see, I have a system. This is not learning how to work one-on-one. I have a structured system that you fit in and you get the rhythm during the summer, and I have continuity in the way I do things. And the only thing we have any discussion about is I make it clear how I want things done, and I do that I do that during the summer. So that way we have a clarity and a sense of how things will be done. And, you know, if people don't want to do it, they don't have to stay. And so then we never have that discussion again. We can then work as a team. You know, I don't have to go around parading that I'm in charge. So I think with my clerks, it's just they need to just go through the reps. And in my system, the editing's built in, the sense that you don't own this product is built in, the sense that we work, we talk, we discuss, that there's no backbiting, that we all keep each other informed, and it becomes just, it's a wonderful endeavor. They're my little family, you know, they're my kids, and I just really like having them around.
What would you hope that they learn about writing over the year with you?
Oh, I know what they learn. They learn the value of collaborating and editing and being edited, both in a constructive way, recognizing that we all are trying to accomplish the same thing. And by the time they're done, I haven't had a single clerk who leaves and says that being edited didn't help. It's just the opposite. I learned a lesson that editing is the key to it all, and that other people look at something that you think is clear and they don't see it, and you can always learn something from the other person. It's wonderful. I mean, it's just a human experience, and it requires you to grow up. When you think of the kids, your kid's number one in everything, shows up. Nobody's ever sort of said, you got to work with other people. This isn't yours. And suddenly you've got to back off. You've got to learn how to work with other people and not have a proprietary interest. It's not yours. It's mine. And it works. They're wonderful. It's just absolutely wonderful.
Are there some quintessential Justice Thomas edits?
Oh, probably early on, but as time goes on, because of clerk manuals and just so many opinions and working with them, it just sort of, they know. We have simple sentences. You're not fighting anybody. I'm not fighting you. A clerk doesn't hand me something that clerk did. That clerk, nothing comes to me that hasn't been through aggressive editing.
Already?
Oh, yes. There are 3 aggressive rounds of editing before it ever gets to me. But see, we start our decision-making process at the cert petition stage. So, and we do it as everybody knows. All the clerks are involved. The preparation, all 4 clerks are involved. Before I go on the bench, we have an outline form of a disposition of the case that we've discussed the case. We also, when we go on the bench, we already have an outline if we get the opinion of how we would do it. That's when we go on the bench for oral argument. Then when we go in conference, we have final disposition memorandum. We have further discussions about the case. So when we get a draft, when we get an opinion draft, We're already 3/4 down the road, which is just a matter of putting it on paper.
Is it good for a conservative justice to have some liberal clerks? Is it good for a liberal justice to have some conservative clerks to play off ideas against an opposing view?
No, I don't know. I don't think liberal and conservative works up here real well. I think that may work across the street a little better. I think there are different approaches to the law. There are people who like these broad, expansive approaches and are a little more loose around the edges than I like to be. And there are people like me who like to tack pretty close to what the law says and that document says. I don't think that's liberal or conservative. I mean, I don't think when I wrote separately in the medical marijuana case that people would say, well, if you're for people having a right to smoke dope, that must be a liberal position. It's neither. It's a Commerce Clause position. And it's just a matter of who makes the decision. I think you are tempting fate if you have someone in your chambers working this closely with you who is fundamentally at odds with your approach to the document and to your work. Not disagreeing. We get plenty of disagreement, but the one thing that I won't give ground on is the sort of the view that we have to adhere to this document or to this statute. It's not our decision to make. Some people don't think. They think it's a point of departure, and I don't abide that here. So, no, you have kids with all different views on different things, then that's fine. But there's some things, that's like saying, should you have a Catholic priest who's a non-Catholic just to have some disagreement? I'm not. You can be only ecumenical up to a point.
Let's go back to your beginnings as a writer. What's your earliest memory of writing?
Sister Mary Dolorosa in the second grade. I got 3 Ds in that class. That's probably my earliest, but my most painful had to be essays, and 8th, 9th grade where you had the weekly essays. I remember in high school, I forget when it was now, every Monday you had to have a 1-page essay.
Were you in Catholic school all the way through?
Oh, yeah. I was in seminary through high school. I was in Catholic school from the second grade through Holy Cross.
And what was so difficult about those essays?
You had to do them every week. I mean, what were you doing on Sunday night? You don't want to sit down and do an essay. It wouldn't occur to me to do it on Saturday night. But it was 1 page. You had to come up with something every week, and book reports and things like that. And and I remember writing them out and learning how to type and typing them, etc. It was just the doing. That's all it was, just the doing.
In retrospect, was that good training for you?
Oh, it was fabulous training. It was fabulous training. Probably that and Latin translations. Fabulous training. Absolutely fabulous. You just got to do it. And I wasn't good at I couldn't use the English language very well. I had great difficulty using the English language. So it was very, very painful for me. It was looking up every word and looking up the spelling of every word. It was really not easy. So it was, every word was painful. So I had my little Funkin' Wagnalls, the little hardback cover that eventually just fell off, and it had a thesaurus. And
can it really be that you had difficulty using the English language?
Oh, I grew up speaking Geechee, so that's that language in the southeast part of the country, in the islands. Sort of like if you've been to the Caribbean, it's that sort of patois.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when do you think, by what age were you speaking standard English?
Oh, standard with ease? 22 maybe.
Really?
21. I don't know, probably early 20s. Late 20s, early 20s. I mean, late teens, early 20s.
Was that Catholic school that did that for you, or was there a lot of self-study involved?
Oh, there's a lot of self-study. There was a lot.
And what do you think led you to do that?
Probably a lot of things. I mean, what are your choices? Everything is done in standard English. You know, I had two clerks one year. One came to this country from Russia, from the Ukraine, and didn't know a word of English, and learned English as a second language in the 10th grade out in California, and never missed a beat at high school, and went on to Harvard and Harvard Law School. I had another clerk who came to this country from Albania and went to Palm Beach Atlantic University, and then went to University of North Carolina and graduated #1 in his class, and learned English on the fly, and wrote and spoke beautiful English. So they had a tough time.